up, I'm going to give you an introduction in terms of what I'm going to cover today. In terms of, and this is important for all of you why you're attending this session, is because when I was in engineering, or even when I was in IIM, I didn't have a lot of this working knowledge and never could make this understanding very clear. So I'm going to try and answer the following questions for you today. One, I'm going to give you a insight into if you were to enter consulting today or tomorrow, or if you want to enter FMCG, what will you do on a daily basis and how do these careers look like? That's question one, is what I'm going to answer. Question two, I'm going to answer is, as a recruiter, and I've been a recruiter for both FMCG and consulting, both at the IITs, the IIMs, and ISB. What do we look for? So what are the good things we look for? What are the mistakes people typically make? That's the question two I'm going to answer. Question three I'm going to answer is in terms of whichever stage in graduation you are, whether first year, second year, third year, how do you make a resume basis where you are right now? So what are some of the myths? What do we actually look for, and what can you do from tomorrow? From tomorrow is what I'm going to answer, which is question three. And question four, I'm going to answer is, I passed out in 2009, which was the recession batch because of the Lehman crisis in 2008. Some of you are lucky; you're not going to be passing out at a recession batch. But I'll give you some advice in terms of how to handle the placements from someone who burnt his hands directly in the 2009 crash. So this is in terms of my structure today. I plan to speak for about 40 to 45 minutes, and I'm happy to take as many questions after that. I would like to thank all the 93 attendees I see in the tab for making time on Saturday evening. To be honest, when I was in IIM Bangalore and when I used to have these sessions, and they used to say that some alum or some senior will come on a Saturday evening and you have to attend. And I used to think to myself, the alum must be really jobless, or what a loser the guy must be that on Saturday evening he has nothing better to do. But like they say, karma is a bitch, and 10 years later, I'm doing the same thing. So I hope at least you have not been forced to attend this session. We used to be forced. If we didn't attend, we used to be charged a 500 rupee fine. I don't know what the current rate is for you guys, but I hope you will see value from the session. So I will try answering question one first. And Anita, if you can go to slide number three, whoever's running the deck can go to slide number three, and we can get started. Yes, just stay at slide number three. Now, in case, so from slide number three, I'm going to talk about first question in terms of how do the industries operate, and I'm moving from left to right. So I'm first going to read column one, then column two, column three, from left to right. So the first column is about consulting, and this is to give you a flavor of how consulting has evolved in India. It's very important for you to understand background. So consulting, in a way, follows the economic cycle. So in the 1990s, for some of you who might follow history, will know that the Indian economy opened up. And as a result, a lot of consulting work was, businessmen used to come and say, how do I enter the retail sector? How do I enter this sector? How do I enter that sector? The 90s was also when a lot of MNCs came to India because 1991 reforms happened. So 1990 to 2000, a lot of consulting work was pure strategy, as they called it. You had these 8 week, 12-week projects where you would actually evaluate an industry and say, should you enter or should you not enter? So if you went to a pub in the 1990s and if you told someone that, look, I do strategy consulting work, I do market entry work, that was considered very cool and you would have had a good chance to get picked up. Now, by the time you came to 2000s, the early 2000s, a lot of these companies knew which sectors were important, which sectors to enter. But a lot of companies didn't know how to enter it. So, what are the challenges on the ground? So, from 2000 to 2010, the word implementation started becoming very cool. So, by the same analogy, if you went to a pub in 2000 to 2010 and told somebody that, look, I do implementation work, that was very cool and you had a good chance of getting picked up at the pub. Now, 2010 to 2020, the entire world started going digital, whether it's e commerce, whether it is customer service going online, whether it is chatbots. So, a lot of consulting work started supporting this digital transformation in terms of designing it, having the right metrics, and getting it implemented. Now, the question, a lot of you, I was seeing some of the questions that were coming my way is what will happen from 2021 to 2030? Now, when you come to the workforce, as a consultant, you will be again expected to solve what are the leading problems companies are having. So, what are the leading problems companies are having? One is in terms of all the companies are going digital. So, e-commerce is going to become very big. Customer service is going to become very big. You will have this something called hyper personalization. So, the experience which you have will be only for you and not even for your neighbor. That is going to become very big. Cyber is going to become very big because of data theft. The analytics models that existed 3 years ago are honestly no longer valid. Analytics, data sciences, all of this will become very big. So, you as a management consultant will be expected to be a jack of all trades. You will be expected to know strategy, you will be expected to know implementation, you will be expected to know a bit of tech, you will be expected to know digital. That's what the expectation from you will be. Eventually, where consulting is headed is like a private equity model. So some consulting firms, in a way, what you would have heard of Bain Capital does, in a way, it'll buy some companies, transform them, and sell it up. So that's where the consulting industry is headed. To give you some context in terms of how the industry operates. Now, in terms of business, the way the consulting business operates is it is fairly recession proof, irrespective of how the business operates. So, whether, like they say in the share market, whatever happens, the bears make money, the bulls make money, only the pigs get slaughtered. So, the consultants always make money because when things are going good, clients call them and say that, how do I grow faster? When things are going bad, clients call them and say, how do I fire faster? So it's a fairly recession-proof industry. The business problems, like I said, 1990s was all about strategy. 2000s was about implementation. The last decade was about digital. The next decade, you are going to do everything. That's what the expectation is. Another question that is typically asked is what is a typical consulting project in terms of duration? And in true consulting style, the answer is it depends. If you are doing a pure strategy project in terms of 8 weeks or 12 weeks, you're trying to answer, should I enter this industry or not? That is about 2 to 3 months. If a client calls you and says, my revenue, my sales is growing at 6%, can you transform it to 14%? That's a 12-month project. If you're doing a due diligence, so a client wants to know, should I buy that company? That's typically 6 weeks. So depending on the nature of the problem, the duration of these projects occur. So this is in terms of giving you a sense of how consulting operates. Now I'm coming to the second column on the screen, which is about FMCG. Now you have to understand why FMCG. And when I talk about FMCG means fast moving consumer goods like toothpaste, like shampoo, personal care, like Good Night, all that you use, Parachute hair oil. This is FMCG. It moves very fast because consumption happens fast. Now, why is FMCG important in the first place? The reason FMCG is important is because if you look at India's GDP, our total gross domestic product, the number of 2.7, $2.8 trillion, 60% of it is consumption driven, which means what you are buying today, whether it's Parachute hair oil, Maggie noodles, Norse soup, Lakme shampoo, is actually driving 60% of the economy. So FMCG and the larger, broader sense, consumer and retail, as we call it, is very, very important because our entire economy is consumption driven. Now, in terms of FMCG industry, what has happened is some of the key trends, and this is the work that you will do going forward, is the entire nature of consumer behavior is changed. When you look at a country like India, earlier the whole notion was India is one country. We are a uniform country, but what people are increasingly realizing that India is not one India. India is many Indias. In fact, there are a million Indias. So what sells in Kharagpur does not sell in Haldia, and what sells in Kharagpur does not sell in Kolkata, or what sells in Kolkata doesn't sell in Darjeeling, and what sells in Kolkata doesn't sell in Bhubaneswar. Every 100 kilometers, actually, consumer behavior changes in India. You will see this in your own IIT Kharagpur mess. Your neighbor will not like the same food. Your neighbor will not like the same room. And a lot of the work that you will do is about million Indias and cracking the business model of this India. The other big consumer trend with FMCG that you will see is in terms of growing online. So, going online, a lot of in urban India, you will see e commerce shooting up. Today, if you see total sales, e commerce is only 2 to 3%. That is likely to rise to 15 to 16% going forward. So, a big rise of the online channel is you will see, and you will be driving that experience. Another big trend that you will see is in FMCG and retail in India, the unorganized channel, which is your neighborhood kirana, the local person from where you buy your stuff, is going to dominate. There's been a lot of text written that the kirana or the mom and pop store, as we call it, will go down. No, it will not. It will dominate, and there will be a technology transformation for that. And you will be driving when you come to the marketplace for that technology transformation. Today, the kirana store is 85 to 86% of total sales, and it might stay the same if not increase. The other kind of work that you will do in FMCGs in terms of establishing partnerships, very different kind of partnerships. So last year during the COVID pandemic, some of you would have realized that you could order food items, you could order a Maggie on Swiggy, a Maggie raw material, not noodles. You could order hair oil on Zomato. So a lot of these unconventional partnerships had started. You could order ITC products on Swiggy. So these partnerships is what you will drive when you come to the FMCG industry. So the FMCG industry will grow, but will become very localized. The local kirana will dominate, but in urban e-commerce will shoot up. There will be different kinds of partnerships that will come up, which you will drive. Another thing which you will drive, especially that all of you come from one of India's best tech institutes, is data science. So what has happened is all the analytics models that were there have suddenly got refreshed because of COVID. There has been like a fundamental shift in behavior. So all the assumptions that were there between 2016 to 2019, so that the 2020 model worked, have just been challenged. So consumers are working very differently. They are going for entry products. Consumers have turned safe. They're focusing on hygiene. They're focusing on health. So all of you who want to enter the space of analytics, data science, have a fantastic career ahead, because in the next 3 4 years, the models that are going to be used to predict consumer behavior will be completely different. So this is in terms of a flavor of the FMCG industry. Now I'm coming to the career path. What happens is when you come to an FMCG industry, whether you're coming from IIT or whether you're coming from IIM, and this is irrespective of the FMCGs, whether it's Unilever or Parle, first year and a half, you will do something called a management trainee. And management trainee is like the investment banking or the trading business. There are multiple desks, and you'll spend 3 months in each desk. A desk can be sales, a desk can be marketing, a desk can be supply chain, a desk can be international business. And you will do this for a year and a half before eventually choosing where you want to go. In terms of career paths, if you're moving in a sales role, you will start as a area sales manager. Area sales manager is typically a state, and then you will move to a regional sales manager. Region is northwest, east, south. You'll move higher and higher eventually when you get to the head of sales, where you look for the whole country. If you're making a marketing career, you will typically start with a small brand. It's called an assistant brand manager. A smaller brand, say Saffola Advanced or Parachute Advanced or Saffola Active. Then you'll go to a bigger brand and a bigger franchise, and eventually you will start moving up. Typically, to reach a senior position, whether it's consulting or whether it's FMCG, takes you about 8 to 10 years of work ex. So that's where FMCG stands. And some of the typical FMCG assignments, what you will do is exactly what I spoke of. And given that all of you have tech backgrounds, you will run projects along the lines of refreshing the data models to predict consumer behavior. You will run projects to digitize the kirana chain, this whole unorganized chain. How can you digitize it? What are the apps that are necessary? And how do you make intelligence out of that? So some of that work is what you will do. Now I'm coming to the third column in terms of how does a typical day look in these industries. So if you want to enter consulting and FMCG, and I've had the fortune of working in both over a period of 10, 12 years, a day is not for the faint hearted. So the benefit of this industry is you will meet some unbelievable people in your life. I'll give you an example. In 2019, beginning of 2019, I had the opportunity to go to the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad because the client said, find out what the others are doing in the Kumbh Mela and come and tell me what I can do. So that's something you will get. When I came out of IIM Bangalore in 2010, I was going to go around UP, all of UP. I spent 4 months and trying to figure out helping one of the leading automakers in India to get their rural strategy right. And I had this great interaction with. I went to Eastern UP, Gorakhpur. For some of you who might not know Eastern UP, Eastern UP is the wild, wild west of India. So I happened to go to Gorakhpur. It was a district called Basti. It's adjacent to Gorakhpur. And I was sitting with this dealership, and these are dealerships, meaning they sell like good trucks and vehicles, and these dealer owners are very rich. They're like 300-400 crores of net worth. And I, coming from I am Bangalore with my nice fancy shirt, Arrow New York shirt, with my new jacket, with my fancy phone, new laptop, and I was trying with my new fancy deck, I was trying to explain to a Eastern UP businessman how to do business. So I told him about process, I told him about numbers, I told him about method. And the guy was actually chewing pan for 10 minutes and listening to me. After 10 minutes, he spat his pan in the dustbin next to him. And he looked at me and said, Chokre, teri umar kya hai? And I told him 24. Then the guy looked at me and said, Zindagi mein kattha dekha hai kabhi? Now, I obviously knew what a kattha is. So before I could say anything, he opened his drawer, took a gun, and put it in front of me. Now, when you're 23, 24, people tend to be a little cocky, and I'm sure some of you are. So I thought of telling him, ye khilona hai ki ye chalta bhi hai? Thankfully, for some good sense, good reason prevailed, and I did not tell him that. And later I found out that he does it to every strategy consultant who comes his way. The story doesn't end there. So after the discussion with him, he took me to his farmhouse that was behind the distributor. This is a huge farmhouse, and these days the geo was not there. So if you shot you dead there and he buried you, there is no way anybody in India would have found you. This is the time Azam Khan's buffaloes in UP had gone missing, and the whole UP police was after Azam Khan's buffaloes, and they could not locate it. So if Azam Khan's buffaloes could not be located, if I had died, nothing could have been done. So I remember we sat in his farmhouse, and there was this wooden stool he sat on, wooden stool I sat on, and his wife was sitting, I think, 200 meters away, and she had this huge knife, and she was like killing these hens. So she took a knife and she chopped off the head of one hen, and there's like blood streaming all over, some of it landing on my new Arrow suit, but you can't tell him anything. Then finally, the distributor guy called called a cow next to him, and there were names for all the cows. I think called a Priya or something, if I remember correctly. He milked that cow in a wooden glass, and he gave it to me and said, "Chokre, ye fresh hai, isko pee." Now, I don't know for some of you who've ever had raw milk, but the smell can be terrible. And if you're not used to raw milk, it can be unbelievable. So I had to have, because at the end of the day, my life was dear to me. And I was having it, and you could feel unpasteurized milk. You could feel Madame Curie and all her research that went into pasteurization of milk, and I could feel all the bacteria and the virus going down my throat. Somehow I drank it. I don't know if I puked after that, but I came back in one piece. So you will meet some unbelievable people in part of this as journeys. Another anecdote I have is when you get into FMCG, you will often hear this, that when you get a stint in southern Bihar or the Northeast, and the company will tell you that if you get kidnapped once, we will pay your ransom. If you get kidnapped twice, we will pay your ransom. But if you manage to get kidnapped a third time, we will not pay your ransom. You are on your own. Some of these stories are anecdotes, but some of these stories are also actually true. So a day in the life of a consultant, you will meet some unbelievable people. It's high pressure. The work hours are very, very long. So irrespective of what firms come to campus and say, it is a 12-hour is a good day. So you will start your day at 8:30. You will go until 11 or 12 o'clock. It goes without saying in consulting. FMCG is a little lesser. FMCG, you have a little more control in your life, but consulting is 60 hours a week is normal, irrespective of what they say. It doesn't work that way. So, what are the pros and cons of this industry? So, I'll start with consulting first, and then we'll go to FMCG. So, pros of consulting is you will travel, you'll meet some unbelievable people. And when I say travel, you will go to the heartlands, and you will also travel. So, I've been fortunate to work in Chicago, New York, Southeast Asia. So, you will travel that, and you will travel in that. You will get some unbelievable client exposure. So, I'll give you another instance. 2014, I was about 27. I was a young senior consultant in Accenture. And we were working for some of you who come from Delhi. There's this company called DCM Shriram, the Shriram Group that runs LSR, SRCC, and they have an office in Barakamba Road. You might Some of you from Delhi will know that's a huge group in North India. And it was a Tuesday evening, I remember, and Wednesday was a presentation to the Shriram brothers, the people who own the company. So the partner on my project came and said, Sandeep, kal tu present karne wala hai. So I obviously thought he's joking. He's not going to make me present in front of those three brothers. They're like 50,000 crores between them. So the next morning, the meeting was around 12 o'clock. So the partner was a big foodie, and he was a Bihari. He was a great foodie. So he got a lot of samosas in the morning. He got rabdi in the morning, and he said, "Sandeep, tu rabdi mat khana, क्योंकि तेरा गला खराब हो जाएगा. Meeting के बाद तू खा लेना." So that's when I realized the guy was serious. That I had to present to the Shriram brothers, and somehow I did something in the last 1 hour. I went, and just to explain, this is a boardroom. This is a massive boardroom. A room is like a mini auditorium. There are 30 leaders, and they're all CEOs and CFOs of all the Shriram companies. Some of them I have seen in the newspaper. I knew Ajay Shriram because I'd seen him in the news interview the previous night. And the meeting starts. The partner introduces for 30 seconds. He hands over the stage to me, and he goes and sits in a corner. And I run the entire meeting. This is an experience only consulting can give you, and no other industry can give you. And the final pro in terms of consulting is you will keep doing different things, you will learn different things, etc. So, what is the con of consulting? Number one, work hours. They're terrible, irrespective of what they tell you. Whichever firm comes and tells you there is no work life. In your best week, you will work 60 hours. In your worst week, you'll go to 100 hours. There is no concept of work life. Second, there is a lot of politics. It's a dog eat dog world. The output is intangible because of consulting. It's not really tangible, and everybody is as smart as you. So there is a lot of politics because there is a dog eat dog, and you would have heard of something called up and out. So the bottom 20% is kicked out every year. So everyone's trying to prevent the firing. And third con is you don't have a personal life. So if you have relationships, they shut down, marriages end in divorces, and all of those stereotypes come true. So that's the pros and cons of consulting. Let's move to FMCG. What is the pro of FMCG? One, you will have unbelievable travel. You will understand consumer behavior like nobody else. So if you ever want to be an entrepreneur in life, my first suggestion is work for a leading FMCG. You will understand how the Indian consumer thinks. You will understand how the global consumer thinks. Second, your people skills will become top notch. The reason they become top notch is because you will be leading a team. You might be 21 years old. The guys who will be working for you will have work X of 25 years, and you will be leading them and telling them what to do. Your people skills will become unbelievable. And if you ever want to become an entrepreneur or a CEO, there's a reason that they say that Unilever is a CEO factory. Because if you work in an FMCG company, the kind of people skills you get exposed to, you are destined to become a very successful entrepreneur or a very, very successful CEO. So, what are some of the cons of FMCG? The cons of FMCG are the hours are long, but not as long as consulting. You will have travel to random places. So, some of you, if you're fond of your metro lifestyles, that is not going to happen. So, that is a second con. Pressure is high. If you're in sales, pressure is very, very high. It is nothing that you have experienced like today. So if you believe your IIT exam was difficult or if your IIT placements are difficult, this is 100x of that. So every month end, you will be in terrible, terrible disarray. So the pressure is 100x of what your JE exam pressure would have been. So what happens after 2 to 3 years? What typically happens, you will see, is if 100 people join these two industries, attrition is very high. So in consulting, it's very, very high. So at the end of 3 years, you will see 50% would have left. At the end of another 3 years, you will see another 50% would have left. And you keep going the geometric route that at the end of 7 to 8 years, you will only have 7 or 8% of the people left. Where do they go? Either they start their own firm, they go to another consulting firm, they go to industry, some go to teaching, some join the social sector. FMCG, the attrition is lower. I think some of careers are more sustainable, but the attrition is high. Not as high as consulting, but the attrition is fairly high. Where do you go from FMCG? You can go to another FMCG, you can go to a smaller FMCG, you can take a global role, you can join a consulting firm. So that's how you exit the industry. So this is in terms of to bring to life what consulting firms and FMCG work on. This is the question one which I spoke about. And if you can go to the next question, next slide, please, and I'll move on. Anita, if you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So the next part I want to talk about is question two and question three. how does the recruiting process work? And I can tell you this because I have done recruiting at IITs, IIMs, and ISB. I've done this for many, many years. So, how do we typically look at this? And I hope you don't say outside what I'm telling you here, but this is ground reality. So, first, I'm going to go from left to right. So, how do we evaluate resumes? What you will hear on campus when companies come on campus is that there is a committee of 5 people. Each resume, each person will read for 5 minutes, then they will jointly debate. So all that is crap. Nobody does all that. This is how resume shortlisting is done. Every person just reads a resume for 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, you will roughly know this person makes the cut or doesn't make the cut. And this is across the board. This is across your life. This will happen at every stage. Nobody will spend more than 30 minutes or 30 seconds on your resume, irrespective of what people tell you. So, how do you stand out in 30 seconds of your resume? This is how you do it. One, your resume will have many sections, whatever the IT Kharagpur format is, but generally you will have the following sections. You will have an academics, core academics. You will have some academic research projects. You will have some internships. You will have extracurriculars, debating, speaking, writing. You'll have sports, and you will have leadership positions of responsibility. Different institutes change the nomenclature, but broadly these are the 5, 6 sections. Here are my 2, 3 cents on how to stand out. One, change the order of the resume as much as the institute allows you in the descending order of your strength. If sports is your number one, don't hesitate to keep sports as your number one. If debating is your number one, push it to number one. If acads is your number one, if you want to brag about your all India rank, push it number one. Resume should always be done in the descending order of your strength. No interviewer is going to sit down and read the whole thing. Okay, so that's one. Second thing, the first line of each section should be the summary of the whole section. So no interviewer reads through every line. At best, an interviewer will read the first or second line of every section. So if your one section is sports, the first line should be an aggregate form, which means took part in 6 inter-IIT festivals, was part of 3 college IIT teams, won 6 medals over 4 years. That's an aggregate sentence. If you are looking at an academic, say, projects, all your academic projects and papers, authored 4 papers with 3 professors in the areas of A, B, C. If you're talking about an internship, the first line should be an impact. Worked across sales and marketing for new product, appreciated for this saving and received this rating. So the first line should be very powerful because no one will write everything else. So remember these 2 principles: descending order of resume, and second, the first line should be a summary line. That's how you catch an attention. The next question I'm often asked is, how important is academics? And here is my take, having done recruiting for the last 8 years. Academics is important. So for instance, what this means is, when I used to shortlist, I would prefer someone who's in the top 25% of the batch, or your class or department. You should ideally not go lower than top 25% of your section, department, or institute. So if, say, I don't know how the IIT KGP numbers are, but IIT Bombay, I remember, used to be, I think 7 to 7.2 used to be considered average, if my memory serves me right. And 8 or 8.2 used to be a by default top 25%. So we had an intuitive cutoff in our mind that top 25%. So always in academics now, and this is important even when you come to a business school, whether you're going for an Ivy League, whether you're going to an IIM or ISB after this, your undergrad records will be looked at. So if you're in the first year, if you've had a bad term, push it to the top 25% of the batch. That is a no-brainer. Less than, if you are average or below that, it's going to be difficult to justify this, not even here, but even when you go to a business school. The second thing is, how important is academics? And the answer is, it is a cutoff. The top 25 is what we look as a cutoff. What we need is a balanced resume. So let me give you 2 cases. If there is one guy who is, say, AIR rank in the top 10, President's Gold Medal, coming from IIT Kharagpur, versus another guy who's top 25% of the batch, has done sports, has done elections, FMCG and consulting will go for the second guy. They will not go for the first guy. So what we look at is balance. That you have 4, 5 sections. You've done a bit. You've been above average in almost every section. So we understand no one can do be god at everything, but a bit of academic projects, a bit of the extracurriculars, a bit of leadership, a bit of event organization, everything above average, top 25% of acads. That is a dream resume for FMCG. That is a dream resume for consulting. The next thing I'm going to talk about is this whole process of case solving. And I talk about this a lot in my book, and some of you should probably pick it up. How does consulting case solving work? So, as you know, the process is the first round, you will have resume shortlisting. Then, typically, you have 3, 4 rounds of consulting case interviews whenever the firms come to your campus. First round is with CM manager. Second round is with someone like me who's been a director. Third round is a partner, and you make the offer. So that's how it works. These are some of the tricks you should remember, and these are not just for consulting. You should remember as you enter the placement season. When somebody says, "Tell me something about yourself," don't give the standard answer, "I do blah blah blah." Some of the interesting things is you have to say by being more specific. So if you say, "In my hobbies, I like sports," don't say "I like sports." Say, "I like Chinaman bowling. My favorite player is Kuldeep Yadav." It's a very specific example. If you say, "I like reading," don't say, "I like reading books." Say, "I like reading books by," for the purpose of discussion, Sandeep Das. I like his writing style. He's very funny and he's very smart. I like watching sitcoms. Don't say, "I like watching sitcoms." Say, "I like watching Korean dramas. These days, I'm watching this drama." Make your points very, very specific. In terms of when people say, "Give me your hobbies." I like running. I like running in the morning. I am trying to run this marathon. My average is 7 kilometers a day. Build that specificity so that the interviewer remembers the conversation. I like traveling. It is my aspiration one day to climb the Himalayas. Or I have been to Darjeeling and I've gone to the highest peak in, I don't know if K2 is visible from there, but K2, something like that. So make it very, very specific. The next thing you should know when you enter an interview is every line on your resume you should be able to speak for 30 to 60 seconds, because the interviewer will be glancing through it and he can ask anything. And you should be completely prepared to give 30 to 60 seconds about your resume. Next come the case interviews. And I cover this in depth in my book. But case interviews, you will have a lot of case books. I think you guys have DC++, at least we had during our time. And you'll have a lot of these case books. Some of the best ones I have are, I think Fuqua is something I rate very highly. I think the Stanford case book was very good. So these two, I had used Fuqua a lot when I was a student. And you can practice these. But when we are interviewing, we typically put students off. And if you really want to practice, I'm going to give you 2, 3 cases now. Sit with your friends sometime tomorrow, day after. Try practicing these with you. Case number one: Shah Rukh Khan comes to you. Shah Rukh Khan is your client, and he says, "What should I do for the next 5 years of my life?" Try answering this case. It is one of the most complex cases you will ever do. The second case is iPhone is launching the iPhone 13 in September this year. How much should it price the iPhone 13 in India? Try the second case. So these 2 cases will give you a very good view in terms of how you can approach problem solving. Now I'm coming to the second column, which is in terms of getting into an FMCG firm. So what does FMCG look for? FMCG looks again for a balanced resume, but FMCG values people skills. Why do they value people skills? Because typically in FMCG, you'll be working with agencies who are way more senior than you. You'll work in sales with the guy reporting to you will be 50 years old. You will be in supply chain, and the vendor who will work for you will be a businessman. So how well do you handle people at every stage? And how do you build this kind of people skills is to do a lot of extracurriculars. So do a lot of organizational events. I know IIT Kharagpur is very famous for that Diwali event, if my memory holds me right. And so do a lot of organization events, organize webinars like this, be a part of many club activities, not at the cost of ACADS. Remember, ACADS have to be the top 25%. But if you show all of this, stand for elections, one of the big mistakes, at least I made during my undergrad, is I thought elections were dirty and stood away from it. No, please actively stand for elections. The amount you will learn from student elections is unbelievable. It gets dirty, it gets messy, but you have to learn it because that is real life. So stand for elections, stand in club activities. That's how you will show people skills. When you come for FMCG interviews, you will be asked very, very tricky questions, and you should you should think of some of these answers. So I'm going to give you two. For instance, there is a distributor you've worked with for 12 months. He's a good friend of yours. He's an elderly gentleman. He's treated you very well. He sees you like his son. He has forged receipts of 750 rupees. So if you report that, that guy loses his livelihood and is fired. If you don't report that, you are in violation of your ethics. What will you do? Think very carefully about this answer. The second one is your person. So you see you have four people reporting to you. Person number one is doing 60%. Sorry, I'm just checking. I'm audible, right?
Yeah, Sandeep.
Okay, I think the screen just went off. Did it just go off for me? Sorry, I'm just checking again. I can't read the screen. If someone can project again, or if it's my problem.
Yeah. The sharing stop. I'll just share it
Sure,
again.
sure.
Just
So till she shares back, let me continue. So the second example is there are four people who are working for you. You are handling the sales of a region. Person one, person two, person three, person four. Person one does 60% of your business. So if your 100 is your business, 60 is done by person one. Now, what you have realized, person one is doing is he's advancing sale. He's just basically it's illegal without selling. He's showing it as sale. Will you report that? Because if you report that, that guy gets fired, you lose nearly 60% of your sale, your rating goes down. But if you don't report that, that's an ethical violation for you. So what will you do? So in FMCG, you will get a lot of these ethical questions which you have to think about. And there is no right or wrong answer. Each person comes with his own answer. So think of how you are going to answer some of these. So that's in terms of uh, FMCG. And I'm going to move to the third column on the slide when that gets projected. Slide number 4, I think. Yeah. So in terms of, I'm on slide number 4, the column 3. So what can you do over the next 1 year if you're a year 3 student, next 2 years if you're a year 2 student, etc. One is in terms of reading. Please build a reading habit. What does this mean? So read the newspaper every day. So start with Economic Times or Mint. You'll have it in your library. Spend 1 hour every day. And initially, when you start, you might not understand a lot, but please do over a period of 3 to 6 months, you will understand how the economy works. You will understand how the industries work. So when you walk into an FMCG or a consulting interview, there is no industry you wouldn't have heard about. So please read the newspaper every day. Second thing is read one book every month. So you should read 12 books a month or 12 books a year, one book a month. You can start with my book essentially because I cover a lot of what I'm talking about, but read any other books. So, and you should read across categories. So some of the books I recommend, you should read Shantaram if you haven't read Shantaram. You should read a book called read any of the biographies, any of the good biographies, and whatever you like, could be even Chetan Bhagat, but read one book a month. The other thing I would strongly recommend is watch one sitcom series every month. So this is something we used to do in college, and I'm sure you've done this. So go to IMDb, look at the descending order of sitcoms, and just start watching one a month. The ones I recommend highly are because they're great source of learning is Breaking Bad. You should watch How to Get Away with Murder. If you want to enter the world of finance, you should watch Billions. If you want to enter the world of consulting, you should watch House of Lies. These four I recommend very strongly. Please do watch it. So don't feel guilty or binge watching sitcoms. They are a fantastic source of learning. The second thing is you should build a balanced profile. Again, like I said, ACADS top 25%. If you're dropping ACADS now, pull it back. It will not just help you for final placements. When you go to a business school, whether you go to INSEAD or IIM Bangalore, it will be looked at there. So a bad academic score here will hurt you, not just here, but will hurt you even at your business school. So build 25% you have to be in the top of the batch, and every other section you have to play a role. So don't run away from student elections. Be a part of the student elections. They get dirty. Do something in extracurriculars, do something in sports, whatever your hobby is: speaking, writing, debating, theater, music. Pursue it and be at it, and build a balanced profile. Remember, like I said, if there are two candidates, one guy is a president's gold medal, all India rank one, versus another guy who's 75th percentile in terms of acads, but is above average in all the other categories, every consulting firm will pick the second guy. So build a balanced profile. Third is probably one of the most important skills, and there's a stereotype, I don't know if it's right or wrong, that some graduates who come from IITs are not very robust with communication skills. How do you get over this? One, do read every day. It will build your written English. The second thing is try speaking in front of the mirror. I used to do this. I used to get scared of public speaking during my college days, and way I used to do is I used to just go online, click on Google, I'm feeling lucky, and the first word that would come with I'm feeling lucky, and I would try and just do extempo for a minute. Do it for 2 3 months. You'll be amazed at how fast your mind will think, how much fluency you will develop. So definitely focus on your spoken English. Do a lot of theater, it helps. Do a lot of debating, it genuinely helps. At least it had helped me a lot. So don't run away from public speaking. You have to do it all over your life, and you'll have to pick it up. So this is in terms of what you can do over the next 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years. If we can go to the next slide, the next question I'm going to answer is in terms of how you can approach the upcoming placements. And this is some personal advice in terms of I passed out in 2009. 2008 was the Lehman crisis. We had a bloodbath on campus. Your senior batch was very unlucky with the COVID pandemic. They would have had a disastrous finals. By the time you enter the market, the economy is recovering. But here are my pieces of advice for you. When you are entering a difficult market, as you are currently, some of the third years or some of the fourth years, if you are on the call, take the option which you're not miserable with. To give you a cricketing analogy, if you are batting on a seeming large track, you only aim for 175 in the first innings. Because if you aim for 300, you will get 36 all out. So when you are entering a bad market, as long as a job does not make you miserable, you should just take that. Problem is, to give you, for some of you might not follow cricket, if a job is 5 on 10, you should take it, because you might be good enough to go for the 9 on 10, but in a bad market, the 9 on 10 will become 1 on 10 in no time. So in a bad market, take the first option which you're not miserable with. The second option is in terms of always invest in yourself, and this is a platitude, but this is how you do it. Read the newspaper for 1 hour every day, read one book a month, watch one sitcom series a month, and do a lot of extracurriculars. So don't run after, don't think elections are bad, don't think writing papers is bad. Do a lot of that. The third thing you have to realize is, this is a question I'm often asked. This is why I wrote my book, that what you essentially learn in an IIM, or what you learn even in some of the global business schools, is not what you will do in real life. And what you're learning at IIT, I can tell you, you're not going to lose 99% of it. So whatever you're learning, whatever limited amount you're learning, will not be relevant in 2 3 years. And in 3 years, when you're entering the workforce, you will realize your IIT KGP junior by 3 years is actually smarter than you, more relevant than you. And you just have to be ready and accept this, that in course of time, you will not be the smartest guy. Your junior by 3 years from IIT KGP will be smarter than you. And you just have to accept this mindset and keep reading, keep learning throughout, if you have to succeed in corporate career. The fourth thing is, keep your network strong. What has happened is, a lot of you through the education system are brilliant individually, or else you won't have come so far. But going forward, what you will need is a network. So in corporate, whether it's consulting, FMCG, e-com, or any career, even as an entrepreneur, your individual brilliance is about 5 to 10% of total success. How the ecosystem, in terms of how others see you and treat you and support you, is 90% of success. So always treat your network strong. What does this mean? When you pass out of IIT KGP, there should be 3 professors whom you are in excellent terms with, whom you will have a lifelong association with. So I know it's very easy. Some of us laugh at our professors. I used to do it. अरे इसको कुछ आता नहीं है, क्या बोलता है, बुढ़ा है, टकला है, ये सब. But there should be 3 professors whom you have excellent equation with. even with your seniors, your batchmates, your juniors. Don't do something which we used to call RG, which is, I'm sure you guys know what RG is, not sharing notes, putting someone down, etc. All of that. Don't do that because uh, the impression stays long. There was a guy in my batch who was famous for, he was called a free rider. He would not do any work, he would just take everybody's credit. And something like Chatur in Three Idiots, so some of you have seen Three Idiots, even 10 years later. And this is a panel discussion, in a CEO panel discussion, we were all sitting, and some of us were like, "Arey, free rider yahan bhi aa gaya." So what, the image you have in IIT KGP, you will carry through all through your life. So avoid Arjigiri, maintain good relationships. You'll have some great friends in engineering. Cultivate that friendships. And the final piece of advice is in terms of financial independence. There's a full-fledged module I do, but to give you some summary, be sensible with money, avoid instruments like bitcoins, financial derivatives. I mean, you should only get into financial derivatives if it's if it's the money of your girlfriend's father, but or the money of your boyfriend's father, but never do it with your own money. So there's a full-fledged module, but drive towards financial independence. So these are my 5 pearls of wisdom. And my final slide, if you can move to the final slide, is in terms of I am very active on social media. So please do reach out to me on social media. I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Instagram. I'm active on Facebook. So if you want to bounce off something, if you want to talk about something, please do reach out to me on social media. And like I said, my third book has come out, Hacks for Life and Career: A Millennial's Guide to Making It Big. Please do check this book out. It's basically, I had interviewed 250, 300 millennials and students like you and asked them what is the missing gap in the education system which we should cover. And I had spoken to 100 CEOs, and they had said that 95% of IIT grads are not ready to succeed. And these are some of the gaps which I identified and I wrote about. So it has sections on how to start in the right way, how to be a good entrepreneur, how to manage people, what are some of the real world business concepts you need to know, how do you plan your careers, how do you manage your money, how do you answer questions like should you do an Indian MBA, should you do an international MBA, should you go to an IIM, do you really need an MBA? So some of those questions which people ask about is what I've tried to cover. It's number one on Amazon Hot Release, number two on Amazon Business Bestsellers. It's been featured by every leading newspaper in the country, and it's getting some great reviews. So please do check out the book. And that's all I had to speak. And I'm happy to hear you and take any questions you might have.
Tanaya, you can open the Mentimeter presentation.
Yeah, just a second. Would we?
There is a lot of R&D that is done in FMCGs India. You have to realize that the role of R&D is huge. Whether it's a new sort of shampoo or a new sort of cream or a new version of Maggie or a new version of Cadbury, everything is driven by R&D. So it's a new food product, it's a new hair care product, personal care product, soap, dog food. Everything is driven by R&D in terms of product formulation, in terms of benefit, in terms of reducing oil, trans fat, sugar. So all of that research and development into identifying a new product so that it can work in the market is done in FMCG. Is there a scope of R&D in Yes, there is. I think what you mean is a scope of robotics and automation in R&D. Yes, there is a lot of automation isn't done. If you look at the new product development process, a lot of automation is done in terms of visibility across the chain. How do you, for some of you who would have read operations research, how do you reduce the time between each step? How do you collect information? How do you make sense of it? In some more advanced companies, you will have robots who are doing some of those repeated samples, especially in the retail industry. So the answer to the question is it's massive, the scope for both. Very good question. Excellent question. Uh, Here is my honest answer. If you are willing to be an entrepreneur, if you're willing to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be an entrepreneur, an Ivy League MBA has a lot of value. It will give you network, it will give you brand, it will give access to investment. If you if you if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't believe an Indian MBA makes sense. So if you come from an IIT, I don't think you need an MBA. You have enough brand, you have enough contact, you can go ahead with it. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, an Ivy League MBA makes sense, or else it doesn't make sense. For someone who's more keen on doing a corporate job, consulting, FMCG, e-commerce, the value of an MBA is essentially in terms of giving you network, giving you brand, how do you work under pressure, polishing your communication skills. It's largely a finishing school. And if you want to make a corporate career, I think a good MBA from a top institute, for given the kind of pedigree you guys have, it should only be an Ivy League, an INSEAD, or IIM ABC at best, still adds a lot of value in my view. Very difficult answer. The honest way. So you will never find your calling in life. Let me just tell you simply. Even when you're 35, 40, 45, you will never follow your calling in life. Life often works this way. It's driven by what you definitely don't want to do. So the reason I went to MBA to an IIM is because I was sure I didn't want to do coding. So that's how life often works in terms of what you definitely don't want to do, and so you try other things. So in the tech is fairly easy if you like problem solving, if you like coding, if you like if sort of tech enthuses you, if you hear about what your seniors are doing in the Bay Area, if you like what you're hearing, if you like if you do well in the computer science oriented exams or the electronics oriented exams, if you like taking part in tech conferences, if you like all of this, if you like the Big Bang Theory, you you will be okay in tech. FMCG honestly is you'll just find out along the way. It's very difficult ones. Very simple. Like I told you, build the absolute profile, top 25% in ACADS, and be above average. So I interned at BCG myself, and the reason I got the BCG internship, I interned at the New York office, is because I had exactly that profile. Top 25 is actually much higher than top 25, but every other section I had something I could speak about. So that's how you should. IIT Kharagpur, I don't know if MBB is coming this year, given COVID, or I think MBB hires outside the campus. If you come to a business school, maintain that profile and you'll get the internship. My personal view is it should not be more than one page. That's more than that, nobody reads. Honestly, like I said, people just spend 30 seconds, they read the first line of every section. The great resume, in my view, is just 5 sentences. I think you should read online. I think Steve Jobs's resume, I think it is 5 lines, and it's a beautiful resume. So the ideal resume length is one page. No one reads more than 5 sentences, the first line of each section. That's not true. That's definitely not true. You will see a lot of IITians who are just IITians without an MBA, who are in consulting firms and are doing very well. Qualities are very simple. You need to be smart, which you are, or else you won't have come to IIT. You need to be decent at communication skills, above average. You need to be well read, above average. You need to get along with people, above average, and you'll be fine. I am assuming technical achievement means academic grades or academic papers. That's an assumption I am making. So, any form of achievement you should include in your resume, because see, the absolute achievement does not count. What the consulting firm or an FMCG looks for is if you have achieved everything. It could be even that you won the pottery competition in India. It proves a certain set of qualities: the ability to fight, the ability to pursue, the ability to be disciplined. So any achievement, and it could be like winning the kabaddi tournament, should be included in your resume, because the attributes are what people are looking for, not the absolute event. Yeah, so Kirana business is 85%, and this will dominate when I say, because it will remain at 85, 86%. That's how it will dominate. People will continue to shop from the local Kirana. E-commerce at best will go to 8 to 10%. So that's what I meant. In my nazar, who's an eligible candidate to become a consultant? Like I said, the same profile which I was referring to, someone who's in the top 25% of the batch and above average on every other section. Good question again, and I think it's a very good question, something I answer in the book also. But if you are getting an Ivy League or INSEAD or London School of Business, irrespective of what you're doing, I think you should drop everything and do that MBA. If you're not getting these, then you should carefully think. In general, a top MBA, an IMABC, ISB, an Ivy League add value. But if you're getting an Ivy League, you should drop everything else. If you're not getting an Ivy League, you should think carefully. It's a 50-50 kind of answer. Same thing, top 25%. I mentioned a few. So the case books you can look at least from my sense, I think the Fuqua, every institute I think is a case book. The Fuqua one I think was very good. I had used it personally. I think the Stanford one is very good. We used to have DC++. I'm sure you guys have DC++. That's where it's available. Management consultant interviews. I think I gave you a few examples during the talk here. It helps. On its own, it won't do anything, but it helps to have it. It's a series. It's called Billions. It's a series. You will get it on Hotstar. It's a it's a very good question. So it's very difficult to answer this. See, if you come from a good IIT, whether it's old or new, say you come from an IIT Bombay, it has a natural advantage. But if you've gone to IIT Bombay and not managed to do anything in IIT Bombay, then it becomes a disadvantage. So, for example, let me take two IITs, say IIT Bombay, and let me take IIT Jodhpur. Now, someone who's gone to IIT Bombay and not done much versus someone who's gone to IIT Jodhpur and done a lot, every consulting firm will go for the second candidate. Yes, I mean, you will constantly have to improve yourself and keep increasing your list of achievements. So yes, if it's a relative process and if your batchmates have more achievements than you, it will go against you. Can't do much. Yeah, I think you can put up with the Google. To be honest, nobody reads it. To be honest, but I think there are ways to write a cover letter. You can. It basically should be a story. So, for instance, if I had to write one, I would have said I'm an influential author with 3 successful books. I would have written about my third book. I would have said I'm a popular speaker, having spoken at most IITs and IIMs and corporates. And I would have spoken about I'm a leading columnist with Times of India, Economic Times. So some of the highest achievements is what I would have clubbed together and written it. And I would have said I want to be in consulting because there is synergy to my strengths of speaking and writing. I would have just left it at that. No one reads the cover letter, to be honest. I don't know if you have courses. I'm assuming given an IIT, you should have courses. If you don't, do some projects. If you have academic projects or papers, do it in this area. That will really help you. Read a few books, read a few magazines, watch a few movies to get a good sense. And if even this doesn't work, a lot of the festivals you have, participate in some of those games and events and conferences to learn best. A lot of this information is available online through talks and free talks on YouTube, etc. That's how you can do it. I think all the big consulting firms have come for undergrads, big three, the big four, and even I think niche startups. So niche consulting firms. I think there are enough opportunities for IIT grads, people like you. I'm just curious what that meant. HR consulting is essentially looking at people issues in terms of how do you build like talent? Is the compensation fine? Why are people leaving? How do you get more talent? All of that. That's what HR consulting is. Everything related to people. I'm not going to tell you, mate. You need to buy my book for that. Same thing as I've been answering through the session. Top 25, above average in every other section, balanced resume, descending order of sections. First line should be a summary form. To be honest, the only reason was I did not want to do coding for the rest of my life. That's the reason I went for an MBA. And a lot of you will have the same kind of reasoning. Same thing, like I mentioned, uh, good, decent at acads, can do multiple things, can get along with people, speaks well. Yeah. Yes, but you will still do 60 hours. But might be at your pace, but you will still do 60 hours a week. So what that means is on the weekend, if you have to work 20 hours, if you are a incoming fresher, your boss will call you on Saturday 8 a.m. and say work 20 hours nonstop. If you are at a senior level, you will pace that 20 hours and say, I will start working Saturday evening. That's the only difference. Absolutely. Absolutely. Start with mine, Hacks for Life and Career Millennials Guide to Making It Big. Start with that. Read Shantaram, like I mentioned. Read any biography. I think I've heard that the Jeff Bezos biography is a good one. Watch a lot of movies more than the books that we read. Watch Steve Jobs's biography, the second one, not the Ashton Kutcher one. It's a beautiful movie. Watch Steve Jobs's biography. Watch Wolf of Wall Street. Watch the McDonald's documentary. It's on Netflix, I think. Watch Billions. It's beautiful on the financial sector and investment banking. Watch Suits. You will like it. So yeah, that's what you can do. I'm sorry, is that a question or? Mate, you've come to IIT, you've beaten 200,000 people to have come here. I don't think you need to improve further. You are as good as they get. So, given the institute you're studying, and you don't need to do anything else. There is no simple answer to work-life balance. So for someone, I've been asked this question a lot. The way I've written, etc., is I get up early morning. I get up at 4:45 every morning, and 5 to 6:30 I work on my book and my alternate career. The rest of the day I do consulting. Some of you might be going to sleep at 5 a.m. in the morning, but that's how I have done. The internship, I think it largely goes through. I don't think you can get it in the first or second year, but I could be wrong. But just follow your seniors; they'll typically know how the market is going. As far as I know, BCG McKinsey goes outside the campus these days, but I could be wrong. Yes. Short answer is yes, because in life you will need to be jack of all things, master of some. Jack of all things is very, very important because the world is changing very fast. So even if you learn one thing in depth in 2 years, it won't be relevant. So you need to be a jack of many things. Well, there are many other things you can do. Now COVID has gone, so look at the other events you have which can be done virtually, whether it's FES, whether it's virtual organizations like this, writing papers. You can do many other things. Case study comes only after you get shortlisted, not before you get shortlisted. Only for people who get shortlisted is the case study interview done. Honest answer is yes. The way you can overcome is your other section, there has to be a huge spark. You either need to have something very good in sports, very good in theater, very good in leadership. Your another section has to be something very, very good, top 10% of the batch. That's the only thing you can do. If you can't do that, then when you come to your MBA, you have to ensure you are extra cautious about your ACADS and you go into the top 10%. That's the way you can make that up. uh, how to Get Away with Murder. It is on Amazon Prime. Honestly, it doesn't matter. All three are largely the same. It's the same kind of people. It's same kind of work. They're honestly similar. There are minor differences in culture, but if you happen to get all three, you should just take the first one. It doesn't matter where you go. All three are equally very, very good. They say Bain is a little more people friendly. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, but be when you start up. If you all of you are planning to do your startup, you should probably read the last article I wrote for Times of India on how to start up best for this decade. So just go to my LinkedIn profile, and I've really written how you can approach entrepreneurship this decade. So maybe look at that. Advice for GD rounds: yes, you will need to practice this in advance. So do a lot of these extra currics. Will help you practice in front of the mirror. Will help you build that communication skill. Read up a lot, so that will help you. I don't think fundamentally the selection process is very different. They look for good profile, whether it's ACADS, WorkX, uh, impact outside work. The Ivy League, I think, looks at a little more WorkX, and IIMs look at a little less WorkX. So the criteria fundamentally is not very different. It's just that different set of people you're going to compete with. So there are often metrics that are very clear. So if you do a revenue increase project, the CEO will say today I'm growing at 5%, I need to grow at 10%. So how close you come to that 10% is what determines satisfaction. I get up at 4:45. Yeah, simple answer. I You should start practicing a few cases with your batchmates. Honestly, if you've come to IIT, or IQ is top notch, it shouldn't take you too long. But start practicing a few cases, read a few case books, read the newspaper. You will understand what's happening. That's the best way to get started. Please go online. Google Steve Jobs' resume. I think it is written in 5 lines. Google Marissa Mayer's resume. She was the ex-head of Yahoo. It's written in half a page. Google MS Dhoni's LinkedIn profile. It is written in 4 lines. Shouldn't If MS Dhoni can write his entire career in 4 lines, I'm sure you can fit in a page. I think it's a myth. I think it's a myth. People talk about it a lot, but uh, just specialization actually has more risk of dying down. You have to realize because the world is changing every 2 3 years very very quickly. So it's better to be a jack of all rather than specialization, in my view. I think it is five is the right kind of number. I think 3 to 5 is the right kind of number as far as I know. 3 to 5 years. Thank you. Thank you. I'm more than happy. If you're asking if your seniors referring you help you get admission into Ivy League, I don't think so. I think the admission committee works on its own very differently. So if you're asking if a nudge or a push can be made, I don't think it works at all. And I am to absolutely it doesn't. So, a bit of both. See, Suits is overhyped. If you're referring to Suits and his interview process, that doesn't happen in real life. I mean, if you try those stunts with like what Mike Ross did, I mean, you'll be banned forever in life. So you need to be good at a CV to get shortlisted. You need to be good at an interview to get the job. So you need to be good at both. And what you saw in the interview doesn't happen in real life. It's important, definitely, if you can show impact. If you can show impact, it makes a lot of sense. Not really. See, you have to understand every profile can be broken down into 3 or 4 sentences. Take a profile like mine, and some of you will go on to corporate careers. So I will say primary career, management consulting, and corporate leader in an FMCG. Secondary career, influential writer, best selling author, leading columnist, and popular speaker. That's 2 lines. And I will just have one line for each of those points. And 6 or 7 lines, my entire resume will get done. Same thing with you. You should highlight your story in terms of what are those 3 4 things you want to talk about. You can say very good academically, a theater passionate person, etc., etc. Just look at those 5 6 phrases and have one line for each. On its own, I don't think so. As part of a package, yes. 3 to 4 rounds, typically, like I said, after you get shortlisted. I think FMCG, the first round is a GD round, and then 2 3 rounds of interview. I don't think consulting has GD rounds. It's 3 4 rounds of interview. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. See, what happens, it's not a simple answer. If you generally have a good brand name in an internship, it generally means the candidate overall is better than someone who's in a less renowned corporate. It generally means a stronger resume in general. And that stronger resume automatically means more impact. So that way it is better. But if you go to a less renowned corporate and do very good stuff, can also work for you. But the overall resume honestly matters. Bit of both, to be honest. A bit of both. So when you come as intern, please understand you're not going to be Mike Ross doing it for Harvey Specter. You'll be. It's not that you're going to walk into Mukesh Ambani and say, "Dude, this is what you're doing is wrong. Let me tell you how to do it right." The reality is this: you will sit at a desk, you will be on Google all day, incognito mode like this, and you will be researching some useless data point which you will not even like. That is what you will do the first 2 months of your life. Be under no other illusion. I have spoken at I think 20 IITs, 10 IIMs, some Ivy Leagues. Nobody has ever asked me this question. I'm going to speak at TED, but nobody has asked me this question. I honestly don't know how to answer it. I started writing because I used to, it was one of my extracurriculars in engineering in school, and I decided to pick that up and pursue it. The fear of being judged, it doesn't care. Yeah, the simple trick I have followed for some of you is I go on social media. If there is some of your batchmates which I don't like and they keep criticizing, I just go mute them. If they talk too much, I just block them and I just forget after that. So that's what I strongly suggest. Don't like somebody, just block him, especially for women. I think it's more relevant. You think someone is just playing a negative role, just mute them. Easiest way to operate in life. My view is the participation and efforts don't matter because people generally talk about achievements. In my view, if you mention that, it might seem just by mentioning it that you don't have achievements, is what I would say. It depends on the context, but this is my first level answer. All work is bad. Please be under no illusion. There is no good work or there is no bad work. Like they say, it is only crap. It is only the color of crap or color of shit that differs. So be under no illusion. All of you are going to do crappy work for the first 2 years of your life. Be under no, absolute no illusion. In a startup, also, you'll be doing shitty work. In a McKinsey, also, you'll be doing shitty work. So be under no illusion in life. Yeah, true. You just have to go with it. Yeah. My honest view is you should try for everything, and you should have a. So one is, do you have a genuine interest in consulting? Then you should try for the consults. If you're not sure about yourself, this is how you should go about it. Have a list of companies. Like I said, the first piece of advice that what is the minimum company that you're comfortable with. So what is that 5 on 10 which you're comfortable with? The first 5 on 10 that comes to you, you should take it. It's a bad market after all. Thank you. I think it's about managing your workload. Your acats should not suffer. And after that, if you can do it, do it. See, how many projects and internships? I think it's a very IIT question, IIT Kharagpur question. You should generally see some of your seniors, the ones who've done very well, how many they are doing. And that's what you should look for. But again, balance is very critical. I think you should. I don't know how the placement committee works. At least in IIMs, they choose to help us. So the placement committee is the best way. If they are not able to do it, reach out to your seniors. Your IIT Kharagpur, I think, has the best alum network amongst most of the IITs. So reach out to your seniors, reach out to your alums, and try and get an internship. Is how I would suggest. The professors, you'll be amazed, have uh, unbelievable contacts. Maybe reach out to some of the profs.
Right. So I think we are done, sir. Tanaya, are there any other questions? Okay.
No, it's done.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank you once again. It was a very insightful session, and we all at 180 Degrees and we all at KGP are really, really thankful to you for taking your time on this Saturday evening for all of us.
Thanks, Ishan. And I should say you guys organized it really, really well. It's great to see this kind of turnout and enthusiasm. Thanks for inviting me again. Hope you liked it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
So with this, we would end this meeting now.
Yeah. Take care.